There aren't as many options for minivans nowadays as there was back in the 90s. Today, there are very few options available for those that are looking for a large family or cargo carrier. You've got like the Toyota Alphard, which I absolutely adore. Then you've got the Toyota Super Grandia, which is a very nice automobile as well. And then more recently, the Kia Carnival, which we all have reviews on, by the way, and I'm sure that the links are somewhere down below. Then there's this, the 2022 Peugeot Traveller Premium 8-seater. Now, it hopes to bring something different to the table against this competition that it has in the manner of a frugal engine and very versatile seating, which I'll definitely show you a little bit later. The question is its price tag of 3,090,000 Philippine pesos a bit of a reach considering what it has to offer, or is its versatility, like I just spoke about, enough to sock it to the competition? Let's find out on this episode. Do you need help purchasing your car insurance? Head on over to AutoDeal.com.ph/car-insurance. Here, you can compare prices and customize your insurance coverage from many of the Philippines' top providers. When you've selected the insurance that's best for you, simply fill out the application and complete the transaction with ease through Visa, MasterCard, GCash, GrabPay, or PayPal, and receive your policy within the next business day. Get the best deal on insurance with AutoDeal. Now, when it comes to minivans, it's obviously very difficult to redefine a rectangular shape and still maximize interior space. The Traveller does come with a very boxy design, but up front, it does curve to give you a more, well, aerodynamic shape, so to speak. With the cat-like design cues aren't as strong as compared to its crossover siblings like the 2008 or the 3008 and even the 5008. A few hints are still here and there, especially with the headlights. You've got xenon headlamps that have a pretty good throw. Your DRLs are found down here, which are LED, and then of course your halogen fog lamps. Now the grille is, well, it's actually just a garnish really, because there are no vents, no air can pass through. That's actually sealed. The cooling happens down here because it's such a tall vehicle anyway. Most cold air comes from the bottom, and the radiator is found just behind that. When you open her up and flip open the taco-sized hood, underneath you'll find a turbo diesel engine, a 2-liter turbo diesel engine that produces 150 horses and 340 newton-meters of torque. Now, if you need to know 0 to 100 kilometers per hour is just under 12 seconds. Why you would need that information inside a large family vehicle, I have no idea, but there it is anyway. Important. Inside the city is 10 kilometers per liter, which is not bad considering the size of the automobile. But on the highway is where it shines shinier than the logo up front because it can do 18 kilometers per liter. And then there's the fact that it can carry 70 liters of fuel. So you can go 600 kilometers plus before ever needing to refuel. Where's the stuff? Oh, it's on this side. Whoops. Now down the side, obviously there isn't going to be much to talk about because it's, well, as broad as a barn door, but it looks a heck of a lot prettier naman. Thanks to these two panels right here, these glass panels, they don't exactly make the car look majestic, but it does add a little flavor to it. You've got repeaters on the body, not on the side mirror, and then you've got 17s up front and in the rear. Discs too, disc brakes up front and at the rear to provide you with as much stopping power as possible when you're loading the car with all the things that you love. And then obviously there's also going to be some ground clearance. This is roughly about 150 millimeters of ground clearance. Then there's also power sliding doors. I say doors because there's one on this side and there's one on the other side. However, there is no power tailgate for the Traveller, which I think is a bit of a miss because you had power already up there. It would have been nice if they continued it here. And there's also, well, not much to talk about the rear because it's as plain can be, apart from quite bulky rear tail lamps. But what else are you going to do? I mean, it's not like it's a Volvo or anything. And then it's also got one of the largest rear wipers I've ever seen in my life, which I guess you'll need because the pane here is really, really big. I really like these big panes of glass. Anyway, when you open her up, that's when it starts to get really amazing. That's not a pair, but that's 2 pairs of balikbayan boxes with all the seats in play. And we figure if we do a little biology, 1 + 1 = 7, you can fit roughly about 12 balikbayan boxes in this car if you were to transform it and use some of that versatility that I was talking about, which is where I actually want to take you to right now. So first is the third row, and I gotta tell you, leg room and headroom is absolutely fantastic. This is an 8-seater, and it seems like there's proper room for all 8 seats. Comfort is very good. These seats can actually slide forward or back. This right now is at its most extended position, and yet the 4 balikbayan boxes are still in the back without any issues whatsoever. And look, not very well, but I still can cross my legs while this second row is at its maximum tilt. The thing about it is it can get even more comfortable because not just because this thing is a single and these are pair seats, but each and every single one, check it out. You can adjust the backrest of every single person. Comfort, that is great. Plus, everybody gets a 3-point seat belt, and I do mean everybody. And of course, there are ISOFIX tethers all over this place. We found that there are actually 6 ISOFIX tethers in here, and if you're the type of guy that needs to use all 6 ISOFIX tethers, sorry, bro. Anyway, comfort is actually very good. The thing about it is convenience. That's where it gets it's a little lacking, to be honest with you, because while there are cup holders on either door, there is only one charging point found here for the third row, and it's a 12-volt socket. And really, for a van of this size, you're going to be carrying as many people as possible. You want as many charging points as possible, right? It does, however, get a little better when we move to the second row. Now, when I say conveniences get a little better, I do mean just a little better, not a lot. Because, well, for one, charging points. If you want a charging point for the second row, you've only got one down here in the form of a 12-volt socket, which is kind of inconvenient. And then there's also a 220-volt socket found down here. Again, a little bit inconvenient. But for the rest of it, it's actually pretty okay. You've got air vents found up on top with your temperature and air controls there too. You've got a tray table what you can put some snacks on and a drink, and even a rubber band thingamajig that you can hold your tablet. And then the seats do also slide forward if you want a little bit more space for the rear passengers if there are taller ones back there. But really, the amount of room that you have and the comfort level of these seats is actually pretty good. Oh, even more comfort are these privacy shades that you can pull up. Now, you don't find this in a lot of vans, but I think it's actually very important because, well, in cabin spaces such as this, you want to, have a little bit more privacy in it. You don't want all that light coming in. Speaking of light, man, check these out. You've got what looks like a runway, these glass tops, man, and then the center console right here that divides the two. It looks very pretty, actually. It looks very, very premium. But again, a little short on the conveniences because, like I mentioned earlier, it is a van and you're going to be having a lot of people inside this automobile when you do go through the city or the highway. And at the same time, everybody's connected now and everybody has their devices, so it would be nice if there were more charging points inside the car. The versatility of these seats, how you can configure them in so many ways and yet still be so comfortable, is just, well, it's very refreshing to me. It hasn't been seen in quite some time. The last time I actually saw something that was remotely as versatile was the Mercedes-Benz V220. But that was actually just a 6-seater van with 2 seats that could turn around and face each other. Not like this, where you can seat 6 people in the back and still have the space for 4 balikbayan boxes and yet still have the option to move everything around. It's just, truth, I said it once and I'll probably say it again. It's very, very refreshing. The good news is there is no center console here so that you can access the rear anytime that you want, and vice versa. The bad news is that there is no center console so that you don't have storage space, extra storage space that you might need. But there is a lot of other storage space that you can find, starting with here up front on the dashboard. There's storage right there. Then there's also the glove box. There's one down here, and then there's one up here. And then the door cards are ridiculous. It's like your Tito's cargo shorts. There's so much room that you could store, even if you put a puppy in those things, you could probably fit them in there. The layout is actually pretty simple and straightforward. There isn't a steep learning curve to the Traveller, unlike other Peugeot cars where you have to get used to the iCockpit. Here, it doesn't have the iCockpit, so it's pretty standard and straightforward. Like I mentioned, you've got analog gauges with a tiny trip computer in the center. You do have a touchscreen. It's not very large, but the good thing is that it does have a reverse camera along with Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. However, there is no 360-degree camera, which I think in a car of this size, that would be very useful. But at the very least, though, there is a reverse camera. There are some cars out there of this size that still don't have a reverse camera. I don't get that. There are power seats for both the passenger and the driver. And there's also the fact that it does have a massage function. It doesn't exactly vibrate or give you a massage as good as a barber, but what it does is that since the lumbar support is actually electronically controlled, you can select a couple of buttons that will push and nudge you in different ways, sort of like to keep you comfortable while you're driving. Not just for the driver, but also for the passenger as well. There are, however, 3 things that I'm not the biggest fan of. One is that you do have cup holders found here on top of the dashboard. But see, when you try to load, say, for example, your bottle up there, it gets kind of dangerous because, well, this is a stiff bottle and it could crack the windshield. So maybe better for plastic bottles. And then since it is a cup holder, maybe you should just put a cup of coffee there. The thing is, it's a bit of a reach when you're going for it and you're driving at the same time. Plus, since it's a cup of coffee and it's hot, the last thing that you want to do is keep it up high. You want to keep it as low as possible, closer to the center of gravity, and you don't want that to spill, and that's just going to be a mess. It could fall all over your legs. I know I've got hot legs, but I don't need them to be burning hot legs. Jack, don't laugh at that. That's true. The second thing is, well, the pedal for the brake is a little bit elevated, more elevated than I'm used to. So when I lift off the accelerator, there actually has to be, it's a more conscious effort to like get onto the brakes kind of a thing. You have to lift your foot ever so slightly more than what you're used to. And then the third thing is, how do I explain this? Well, it's just that the steering wheel and the instrument cluster in relation to the chair, it's not straight. It's a little bit askew, as one might say. See, if I were to measure this, the center of it comes to about my right pectoral muscle. It's odd. It doesn't fall dead center. So if I wanted it to be center, I would have to move ever so slightly, and then there, I'm center. But in this seating position, it's like I'm putting a strain on my left butt cheek, and that's not going to be very comfortable at all. But maybe if I... Yeah, puede. That works, right? The Peugeot Traveller also comes with ABS with EBD, brake assist, electronic stability program, hill climb assist, driver attention alert, blind spot assist, front and rear parking sensors, rear view camera, Viso Park 1 that gives you a 180-degree view of the back, and programmable cruise control with speed limiter. Lest I fail to mention, the seats, as I've said before, already are very, very comfortable and it's good to the touch. Even the steering wheel feels darn good. But unfortunately, it ends there because the main portion of the dashboard and the door cards, although there are no piano black plastics, it's still very scratchy black plastic here, right? It doesn't really feel all that great to the touch. With a name like Premium in its name, you'd expect, well, just a little bit more. But perhaps it might redeem itself when we go out for a drive. But before we do, I was stepping on the accelerator, not the brake. Whoops! Before we do, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and like this video because we like creating these videos just for you. Now, apart from the fact that the steering wheel is a bit off and it might get to you when you're driving, it's actually a pretty decent drive. It doesn't sit like a crossover or drive like a crossover, obviously. It's still very van-like, so you're sitting very upright. You have large panes of glass, so you get a great view of the road. And if you need more, then, well, there's always the power seat to raise you even more so that you can see even more of the road. Now, obviously, the Traveller is not a race car. It's a van, duh. But what I'm trying to get at is that it does still have a good amount of grip when you're taking corners. Sure, the weight of the vehicle can be felt, but it's not confidence lacking when you're taking corners. So when you load it with people and goods and whatnot, even when the car is heavy, you still feel very safe inside the automobile. NVH is, well, it's decent. I'm going to use the word decent because inside the city, sure, no issues, no problems. Takes bumps quietly, not a lot of rattles, but it's when you start hitting 80 kilometers per hour and above, that's when the noise starts to slowly creep into the cabin. And there's a lot of cabin space to contend with, so there's a slight echo that happens there. At 80 kilometers per hour, which we mentioned 0 to 100 is not a problem, but at 80 kilometers per hour, when you're cruising on the highway, the power you'll feel, it's not a rocket ship, it's not a race car, hence why we mentioned that it takes about 12 seconds for it to get from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour. But what I'm trying to get at is that even though it takes that long, the power comes in a very linear manner. It's very smooth, and then it goes through a total of 8 gears, the 8-speed transmission. And I mentioned that because, well, that's how you get the 18 kilometers per liter on the highway, because it's got such great legs to it. And then also there are some driver conveniences that you will definitely appreciate when you're driving either on the highway in the city. One is that you've got paddles inside this automobile. Sure, people might think that paddles are just for sports cars. No, but it actually gives you more control over the engine when you need a little bit more torque, a little bit more power when you're going uphill, or you want to hold the car down when it's going downhill. Another convenience is cruise control. Inside a van, it's gotta be perfect because when you're going on long drives and you've got a lot of people with you, I think maintaining a relatively decent speed of 95 kilometers per hour on the highway is absolutely vital, because you don't want to get you don't want to strain yourself too much, and at the same time you want to maintain a speed where you can slow down immediately if you've got a lot of people in the back. Slow down immediately, that's the third thing that I wanted to talk about. The brakes on this automobile are redonkulous. They really bite. Those discs absolutely do bite. Oh, and before I lose myself, the other convenience that I actually like is also this turn knob for the gears. It's not a shifter or a stick as you'd be used to. It's actually, like I mentioned, it's a knob, and a lot of people don't like that because, well, it's like trying to reinvent the wheel. And I totally understand that. But from this point of view, rather, it just feels like it's less cluttered. So it adds to the cleanliness, the neatness of the car. I like it. If there is one downside to the driving, it's that the brake actually does feel a little bit on the assisted side. There's a lot of play to it. So when I say that the brakes bite, I really do mean it. It's just that you might need some getting used to just exactly how much play you can step on the brakes before they actually bite. Like I'm putting a little bit of pressure on and nothing's happening, and then I put just a little bit more and all of a sudden it just bites immediately. So I guess just like any other car, they all have their own quirks, so it will just take some getting used to. Not a bad thing, it just takes some getting used to. Second row, extremely comfortable. You want more room? All you gotta do is push the seats back. No problem. You want more light? Open this. You want a bit more privacy? Close this. Now, do I wish that there were captain seats inside this car? Yes, most definitely. I would have liked captain seats inside this car. But honestly, if we did, we wouldn't have been able to do half of the things that we wanted to do with the configuration of the chairs. And that would have been just really a waste of space. Did you think we'd review a Peugeot without a French joke? Oh. I like how the French eat. Some of you may be wondering about the size of the Traveller because, well, I'm a short person and it looks like it's a very big car when I'm beside it. It's basically the same size as your typical vans that you see on the road. It's not like it's a Nissan Patrol where it's so much bigger than that, let's say, for example, of the Land Cruiser. No, in this case, you can easily take it to your parking garages in and out of the city so easily that you won't feel like you're going to hit anything on the ceiling or anything. And it will also fit in most, not all, but in most drive-through places in or outside of the city, which is a great thing.
Hi, welcome to McDonald's. Hi, today's Mona, may take order.
Bonjour, can I have French fries and apple pie à la mode?
Cake fries.
The Peugeot Traveller is in a bit of a spot, if I'm being honest, because, well, the likes of its competitors, which is the Carnival and, say, the Super Grandia, aim for a more premium VIP experience, wherein the Traveller is aiming for a premium family experience. So that's basically what sets it apart. Now, at the beginning of this program, we asked two questions. The first one is if its price tag of, well, 3,090,000 Philippine pesos was a bit of a stretch. And honestly, I think that it is. It is just a bit of a stretch. The second question was, is its versatility enough to really sock it to the competition? Honestly, its uniqueness in the fact that you can transform the cargo space and the seating area in so many different ways with ease, and then also be able to carry 6 to 8 passengers while still carrying 4 balikbayan boxes in the back. Well, truth be told, that just really makes it for a very compelling argument, doesn't it?